All right, I believe that we are live. Sorry for the delay, everyone, in getting started today. You may have also noticed a pinned message that says that there will be no animations today. It didn't have the introduction. I could have played the introduction, but it wasn't really necessary. I have the introduction in order to get the timing right with all of my uh, fancy software doing the delay and whatnot. So, starting yesterday, my internet has had periodic hiccups where it will go down for 3 minutes, 5 minutes at a time. It was a couple times. It may have started as early as Sunday, but a few times yesterday. Today, it's happened a bunch of times. Thought I'd try to do it on my normal setup, and then like 6:30 ish it had an outage, and then it had another outage at 7:01. So, uh, and although I did tell Mary that we might be on StreamYard today, she didn't think to check that message, so she was sitting over there in the normal place waiting for me. I was like, well, now that the internet's back, I'll go see if Mary's over there. Sure enough, she's over there. So then we had to
Yep.
get all set up here. So that's why we are so late today. I know there were some other theories in the chat about me being a narcissist or something along those lines, perhaps inspired by David Wood. But next, Dr. Nike says he wants a refund, and that's perfectly reasonable. In fact, I'll go so far as to say anyone who wants can have a 200% refund of the amount they paid to be here today. So there you go. And he also said if you want to watch streamers that are always on time, go to Apostate Prophet and Apologetics Roadshow. They're professionals and always on schedule. Yeah, that exactly. Definitely want to do that. Uh, Michael K says, "Did Thaddeus catch AP lateness virus?" Yeah, it could be.
His internet caught it.
Talmudic Tunnels Construction says that I'm scared that Mike Winger will show up in the chat. Yeah, he would probably chase everyone away with his epic nerdiness if he did come into the chat. So that definitely a real threat there. But Una had the best comment, I think. She said the toilet gins have possessed Thaddeus's internet. And I'll tell you, that's what it's felt like the last day and a half or so, where it'll be fine for an hour or 2 hours, and then it'll go down for 5 minutes, and then it's back up. So I'm going to give him like one more day, but then I'm going to have to call the internet company and be like, dude, this is unacceptable. Why am I having these problems? I didn't change anything. Absolutely nothing's different than it was 2 days ago when it was working perfectly fine. But anyway, all right. So now let's get to one other housekeeping comment here. Mark Fish said, what did we do last week? And that would be nothing. Well, I did something, but we didn't do anything on this channel. My wife is disabled, as many of you know. If you've been here long enough, you've seen her on the channel, and she spends most of her time in our bedroom. And as it so happens, we ordered a new bed and it arrived, and I needed to spend Tuesday evening setting it up. And Mary didn't have any availability the rest of the week. So we said, oh, let's take a week off. We've earned it. And I had some other streams that were postponed for other reasons. Some on my end, some other. So as a result, I ended up taking like a week and a half, 2 week break. But we're back now. We're happy to be here, and hopefully back on an ordinary schedule now.
Yep, it gave me the
All right. So,
opportunity. Uh-oh. Okay, I am
up
working.
good.
It gave me the opportunity to actually put flowers in the flower beds at our church for like spring, summer, finally. So I was grateful to just because I just have so many hours in the day and I could not claw that time out of my week. So now that I was able to claw that time out of my week, I am not embarrassed every time I go to church at my failure to put in the stuff that I said I would be, picking up, buying, putting in. I don't have to pay for it, but the work and stuff. So I feel much better now too because I'm less anxious about that hanging over my head.
Awesome. So Una says that she was so bored without us that she went into a deep dive of happy science anime. Never again. No. But she also said, and I don't know if if this is happy science anime is just what she calls the Quran or not, but she also said that she had time to read the Quran because we weren't broadcasting last week. So don't know about that. Blue said, hate to admit it, but I missed Mary. Well, you admitted it, so it's on the record. And Jack Ray says that he's been looking forward to this for 2 weeks. I mean, you could say 3. We did stream 2 weeks ago, but it was 3 weeks ago that we had who was the first Muslim according to the Quran. So that's not the question we're going to be answering today. Muslims will usually tell you it's Adam, which isn't even one of the 4 answers the Quran gives. We looked at the Quran, and it was hopelessly confused, couldn't make heads or tails. Well, I shouldn't say that. We made some heads or tails of it, but yeah, I think it's just a contradiction in the end as to what the Quran says there. That, however, is a matter of faith. Whether you say Abraham or you say Muhammad or you say Moses or you say Adam, that's a matter of faith. That's not a matter of historical reality. So that we already looked at that question. Now we're going to ask the question: what does the history say? And Muhammad, even if he was a legitimate prophet, yeah, right. But even if he was, right, he's still clearly the founder of Islam. The religious movement that we call Islam today starts with him in his time frame, or starts with someone in that general time frame. If you're going to doubt that whether Muhammad's behind it or not. Point being that this isn't about what Muslims believe. This is about who is the first person to accept Muhammad's message. Who is the first person to revert, yeah, right, to Islam. And Muslims would generally say something like Abu Bakr, his best friend, close companion. They might say Khadijah. We're going to see that the reality is something very different. So, your opening thoughts, Mary?
So basically, it's just that there are many contradictory sources about who the first Muslim was and how long it took for other ones to believe too. And this of all things, there shouldn't be contradiction on this because it's supposed to be the best and most reliable people who are with him from the beginning, right? But I would like you to notice that are almost no ahadith that originate with the any of the 4 caliphs in the Sunni tradition, and then in the Shia tradition, there are a bunch of things that are attributed to Ali, but they come from much later. They come from the time when the imams came along and declared what the actual, because they had an incredibly centralized power beyond even what the caliphate had in the Sunni tradition later on. They had an incredible centralized power to decide what is to be hadith and what is not, from a political religious authority that was incredibly united. And so theirs is wacky. That's really the only word for it, because they just picked and chose, made things up as they went along. The Sunnis had less ability for one individual person to make everything up. But the fact that there is virtually no testimony from eyewitnesses, even through the telephone game Isnad. Muslims say, oh, this is the science of Isnad. It's so reliable. No, that's called hearsay, sweetheart, and it's inadmissible in the court of law. There is no admissible testimony recorded in any Islamic source. None. No admissible testimony. But even for the inadmissible testimony, the stuff that's, I heard that so-and-so said this, who said this, who said this, even hearsay, there's no hearsay that traces back to a person who was with Muhammad and telling a coherent story about early events for any of this stuff. It just doesn't exist. Instead, we hear Aisha. Aisha isn't even born yet. Why are we listening to her, right? Why is she telling us what Muhammad told her when she was like 13 or 14 or 15 and can actually remember it, about things that happened years before she was born? Why are we listening to the son of a late companion? Why are we listening to all of this stuff? Yet somehow we are. Now, if I can bring up my, if you can bring up my, I don't know whether I can. I don't know what happened to him. He dropped off. Hopefully he can bring up my presentation and we can talk about who these first Muslims are in terms of the followers of Muhammad, the Sahaba. So, are you there? I might have to kill my dog cam just so that I can find out what's happened to Thaddeus. Where are you, Thaddeus? Let's see. Present. Nope, I'm screen sharing. So I guess I'll just continue on until it comes in. The first option of the people who are followers of Muhammad is Khadijah. Okay. And that seems to be the most obvious because it's always Khadijah that he runs off to as soon as he has an encounter in the cave. But here's the question. Can you be a follower of a man who believes himself to be possessed by a devil? Can you be a follower of him as a messenger if he believes that he is possessed by the Satan? And I would argue that you can't be a follower of a false prophet until the false prophet has declared oneself to be a prophet of some sort. So the story in both the Ibn Ishaq and the Sahih al-Bukhari traditions, Muhammad believed himself to be possessed, but Khadijah believed that he was not, but had rather had some kind of monotheistic experience. So Khadijah is the first one to frame it as some sort of monotheistic experience. So in some ways, she was a believer before Muhammad himself believed. Muhammad doesn't believe, but Khadijah does believe. Now, if we check the story, for example, in Sahih al-Bukhari, we find him, running into Khadijah's house and saying, "Oh, cover me in terror." They covered him, supposedly his family, I guess. And when the state of fear was over, he said to Khadijah, "Oh, Khadijah, what's wrong with me? I was afraid that something bad might happen to me." Then he told her the story. Khadijah said, "Nay, but receive the good tidings. By Allah, I will never disgrace you. For, by Allah, you keep good relations with your kith and kin and speak the truth and help the poor or destitute, entertain your guests generously, assist those who are stricken with calamities." And by the way, this entire spiel is highly suspicious because a lot of this is very late, even Medinan theology in here. The keeping good relations with one's kith and kin is Medinan. It does not show up at the time that they're in Mecca. It doesn't show up until he is challenged on the term, what is Rahman? Why are you talking about this Rahman? We don't know of that name. We know of the name Allah. Like they've obviously heard of it because the people around them, the Jews, called their God in Medina, they called their God Rahman. And we know this because there were some converts to Judaism from the Arab tribes in Medina, and one of them had already named his child Abdur al-Rahman. So we do know that that was in use there. It was also, its origin was also Yemeni. And we know that both Jews and Christians called God Rahman. Christians specifically called the Father al-Rahman. And he also said, and he also called the Jews called God that. And so if we continue, and so it wasn't until he was challenged on that he came up with the excuse about kith and kin, because he connected al-Rahman to Rahim, to Rahim, which means Rahim means mercy, but Rahim means uterus. And so he connected it to the uterus and came up with the story of the primordial uterus. So and the connection between keeping ties with your kith and kin and the primordial uterus is all one story. And yet somehow Khadijah here is capable of prophecy and saying that, all of these things that will appear in Islam, years after she's dead, are somehow applicable. So option two is Waraqa himself. So Waraqa, and let me go ahead and check my phone because I'm not sure what's happened to him. And we'll see if he sent me a message, but that means dog cam has to go off. So dog cam has to leave. So I can check my phone. Leave. There we go. Nope, there. And I will find out what has happened to him because we have lost him. Because this is happening automatically, and I have no. There we go. I have no control over screen sharing, which is an issue here. So we will find out what is going on. Oh, his internet is currently down. Let's see. Where are you, Thaddeus? All right. So hopefully he'll come back one way or another because this is his stream. Okay. So the second option is Waraqa. And you would think that Waraqa would be very likely to be a good option because, yeah, Khadijah recognized him as some sort of monotheistic something or other. But Waraqa is the first one who supposedly said that he is a prophet. Yeah, his internet's down. So hopefully he'll be back in a moment. Share my screen. I'm asking him to share my screen as soon as he can. If he comes on or off, I can keep it running more easily if I have a screen that you guys can see so that you can follow along better. All right, so you would think that Waraqa would be up there in the list, right? That he would be one of the first Sahaba. Isn't he a Sahabi? He says that, I recognize you as a prophet. Oh, you should believe in yourself, all of this stuff, according to the sources. Yet there is no actual Islamic tradition that he was one of the first of the Sahaba. Instead, there's a question about, is he even saved? Is he even saved? Is he of the Jahiliyyah, and is he going to go to the hellfire? Which is also a curious question since he's supposed to be a Christian. So, hello, back again.
No, let's see. I'm not hearing it. I'm sure that hopefully people are probably hearing me, but I'm not hearing Mary.
I'm hearing you.
Oh, yes. There's the problem with that. All right, I should be able to hear now.
Okay. Can you hear? Are you good?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay,
this
all right.
I've been dealing with continuously, right, for the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
It's usually not 15 minutes apart, but it'll be fine for like 2 hours and then it'll go down for 3 minutes. Well, this time it was only fine for 25 minutes before it went down. Mary's presentation is up now, so if I lose connection, she can
I'll just keep going. Right.
And I'll try to refrain from putting up comments so they don't get stuck up.
Yeah, I'm like, he's gone. Well, I had to pull down the dog cam so that I could text you on the phone because it had been a while. I'm like, is he coming back? What am I supposed to do? Help! So, all right. So this is the first slide that we've already gone through, and I was just reading from some of these things. So, now we're talking about Waraqa and why one would think that he ought to be a top contender for the first of the Sahaba. That how can there be a Sahabi before him if he is the one who recognizes Muhammad explicitly as some sort of prophet before anyone else? But note that this particular one is the final version of the encounter that was relayed by Aisha. who again, Aisha will not have even been born for another 4 years. She doesn't even remember ever having met Khadijah, even though Khadijah died when she was 5. Whenever she says, Khadijah is the one I'm most jealous of, she says, basically, I haven't ever met Khadijah. But what she means by that is like to remember. She has no memory of Khadijah at all whatsoever. And yet she's most jealous of her because Muhammad is so fond of her memory, etc. So her memory of anything surrounding this is so distant, and yet she's the source for all of this. This should be highly suspicious to everyone, because there were some of the most important people in early Islam were living and with Muhammad and were witnesses to that. What's even more astonishing, I think, in the Islamic record is that all the people who were later, very, very late Sahaba, after the conquest of Mecca, how very little there is narrated from them from before the time they converted. How they didn't leave any stories about what Muhammad actually did and what Muhammad was actually like. It's really interesting that the only stories that we have from this very early period are from people who didn't see anything and are relying on Muhammad, even through the Isnad, even through so-and-so told so-and-so, told so-and-so, told so-and-so. Abu Bakr never told anybody about anything that happened in these 3 years. Umar never spoke of it. Uthman, as far as we know, never spoke of it. Very important stuff here, that this is a gap. And this should let you know that there was stuff happening here that they don't want you to know about. So it isn't going to be, the reality could not possibly have been as clean and pretty and nice and neat as it's portrayed here. And one of the additional evidences for that is the fact that Waraqa is not listed among the Sahaba in any of the lists. And there is a question, it might even be here. No, it's not here, but there's a question about, Khadijah supposedly asked Muhammad, I fear for my cousin Waraqa. Is he among the people of the hellfire? And Muhammad said, oh, I saw him in a dream wearing white robes. And it would have been other than that if he was among the people of the hellfire. So there was this question. Whether or not that happened doesn't matter. That could be completely made up. But the reason that was preserved as a hadith is because people wondered whether or not Waraqa could be counted as someone who was among the Jahiliyyah, or that he was a Hanaf or a Christian before Muhammad or something else. There was even a question about that, or else it would not have appeared as a narration. So here's what's supposed to have happened at that time. Oh, wait, it is here. It's the first one. Sorry, I put in 2 ones. So here it is. Khadijah, he believed in you, but he died before your advent. So the messenger of Allah said, I saw him in a dream, and upon him were white garments. If he were among the inhabitants of the fire, then he would have been wearing other than that. And then the actual interaction between him and Muhammad, and the Sahih al-Bukhari version of it is, oh, my nephew, what have you seen? The Prophet then described whatever he had seen. Waraqa said, this is the same, and this is Namus. It is not angel. It is not Gabriel. This is a lie. That is the same law that was sent to Moses. I wish I were young. He added some other statement. Interesting. He added some other statement. No one says what this is. The other statement is. Kind of convenient that this other statement's dropped out, isn't it? Some other statement. Allah's messenger asked, will these people drive me out? Waraqa said, yes, for nobody has brought the like of what you have brought, but was treated with hostility. This is also funny because Muhammad, for years and years, about 20 years, he preached that the enemies of Allah always try to drive out the messengers, and they are never successful. And instead, the messengers of Allah drive out the enemies of Allah. That is what's supposed to happen. And yet here, somehow Waraqa is already telling him that he's going to be driven out. Well, it's really odd if you read Surah 6, go to Surah 6, and read about how clear it is that Muhammad has no anticipation whatsoever that he will be driven out of Mecca, and instead he thinks that he's going to drive out the people who are against him. So, anyway.
A couple quick comments from the audience here. So Houston says probably because the prime rememberer was Ibn Abbas, who was only age 13 when Muhammad died. I'm not 100% sure that Ibn Abbas has the most narrations. He certainly has a huge chunk of them, though. Aisha has a huge chunk as well. There are a couple others that do. So not sure about who is number one, absolutely speaking, especially if you combine all the Sahih from the canonical collections and otherwise. But Ibn Abbas is definitely right up there. Is it true that he was only 13 years old when Muhammad died?
Yeah,
At least according to the
he was
traditional timeline.
incredibly young. I believe that he was. I can't double check 13, but he was like a teenager. He was not around that long. And Abu Huraira only met Muhammad 2.5 years before Muhammad died, and he's another massive, massive, massive rememberer. Ibn Abbas is supposed to be the best of the interpreters. Ibn Umar is a fairly prolific one too, and he was quite young as well. So most of the people who are supposedly remembering these things were not around at this time. And it is astonishing how few of these narrations come from anyone who was an adult at the time of the event that is being narrated.
Yeah, it's
An
definitely
adult
very.
witness is very rare as being the first person in the list. They're usually children, or they're even hearing a second-hand account, because this is secondhand even now. It's Muhammad's eventual made-up version of what actually happened. We don't know what happened. We have no record from anyone who spoke to Muhammad directly in the first 10 years before he was driven out of Mecca. We have no account from someone who was with him at that time about what happened then.
Semitic Tunnels Construction says he was 13 years old.
Very nice.
Very nice. A couple other comments that I want to take real quick here. Protestant believer says there's nothing from Muhammad in the 7th century. Zero zilch. Not
No,
a.
there actually
And
is.
I know what you're getting at. One, that's not technically true, but I know you're getting at. But what we're discussing actually would go against that, right? If someone was making up the history 100 years later, 200 years later, they would put the narrators as the people who should have been the ones that narrated it according to tradition, right? So you would have Waraqa narrating the tale about him and Muhammad, or you would have Abu Bakr narrating tales about him and Muhammad, or
Or
whatever.
you'd have something from Khadijah directly, before her death narrating this. Or from, especially Abu Bakr, who's supposed to be really early. We should have Ali, Zaid. How many ahadith are from Zaid ibn Haritha? How many, guys? Yeah, exactly. So the way that this is, the kinds of marks that are here are marks of corruption and alteration. They're not marks of wholesale invention. No one would invent things like this. It's very important. So,
and then just one other one that I want to bring up real quick. Morgie obviously joined late, said, wasn't this topic up before quite recently? Well, there was a stream titled similarly, right? Who was the first Muslim? That one was according to the Quran. This time we're asking who was actually the first Muslim according to history. So they're related. It's kind of part 1 and 2, but they are definitely very different topic, very different material. And I said that in the introduction, but for those who came in late. And apparently Mary's doing something, so I'll take the super chat as well from Big Rig 0485. There are no converts. Allah only makes it seem like there are Muslim converts.
That's funny.
Could be, right? He is the greatest of all deceivers. Thank you very much for that donation.
All right. So, whoops. Addas the slave is another possibility. Now, we have already established that we have already talked about Addas the slave in connection with his supposedly being a slave of some folks over some Meccans, but he was in Taif in their vineyard there, and Muhammad goes over there and tells him about how Noah is from, or excuse me, tells him how Jonah is from Nineveh. And he's like, wow, you know so much, because, all Christians would think that Noah's from Nineveh, because that's what Christians believe, is that Noah, his family was from Nineveh, and he was not an Israelite at all. And everyone who lived in Nineveh at that time would really think that Jonah is from Nineveh. And for you Muslims, that is sarcasm, because Jonah's entire story is that he is from Israel and he doesn't want to go to Nineveh because he doesn't want God to not punish them. So that is one of the stories concerning him, and I couldn't find it then. And I had looked for anything else about Addas the slave, but I ran into a story about Addas the slave, kind of sideways in this time, that he was a slave of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah's, of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, who is one of Muhammad's early followers. And even though the content of the supposed exchange is clear nonsense, the authenticity of Muhammad going to people with a Christian background is clear from other things. He's accused of going to Christians and Jews and other people, other slaves and stuff, hearing stories from them and then retelling them as if this is from Allah. This is what the people of Mecca were accusing him of. So here is the story from this particular context, was that in this tradition, this was a tradition reported on the authority of Musa ibn Uqba and Suleiman al-Taymi from al-Suyuti, and this is his al-Kubra. It's also found in al-Zurqani and other sources. So Khadijah went with the Prophet to Addas, a servant of Utbah. He was a Christian from the people of Nineveh, and she asked him about Jibril. He shouted, Qudus, Qudus, Qudus. He asked her, oh, lady of the women of the Quraysh, how is Jibril mentioned in this country of the worshippers of idols? She urged him to tell her about Jibril, and he stated that Jibril was the Amin, the trustee of Allah over the prophets. He is the angel guardian, the sahib of Musa and Isa, which of course is utter nonsense. No Christian would ever say that. The content of this is completely fabricated and transparently so. But this does kind of reinforce the idea that Muhammad and Khadijah and other people were running around to people who had, and remember, he's called a serving boy. So these are young people. They were taken as slaves as kids. They're not terribly knowledgeable in their religion, because what 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, even 12-year-old really would be at a high level if you're just like a commoner who's captured at this period of time. So how would you be really knowledgeable of your religion? You wouldn't. And so, but they're going to these people who were taken as children, and some of whom are still children, and are trying to pull either information from them or a rubber stamp from them that, oh, why, yes, indeed, it's true what he says. Oh, it's true. Now, why would a person taken as a small child from a Christian land who has like absolutely no idea, because you really, you were a little kid when you were taken, why would you affirm something like this? Well, once Muhammad declared, started paying for the emancipation of slaves, that would be why you would put a rubber stamp on anything he said, in hopes that he'd get Khadijah to buy your freedom. Go, oh, I'm being oppressed because I just want to follow you, Muhammad. Please free me, And if you didn't have much of a conviction in anything, because you were taken again as a small child and weren't really that well educated in your Christianity or firm in it, then you might want to suck up to this guy who might help you out. But putting some various traditions in parallel, here is one that's slightly less goofy. And this is
slightly less goofy.
Yeah,
that's our standard here on this channel, is we want the slightly less goofy sources.
Yes. So these are the two together. The first one was about the Muhammad supposedly affirming telling Addas all about Jonah, who was from Nineveh, and the guy agreeing, oh yeah, Jonah from Nineveh, yes, you must be a prophet. And then the other version of the story, with him being amazed by the knowledge about Jibril, who is supposedly the trustee and angel guardian over the prophets, which is, again, not in Christianity at all whatsoever. So option number 4, one that you'll hear much more, is that Abu Bakr was the first Muslim. So, according to a version recorded by Baladuri, and his Ansab, and Ansab is like a book of genealogy. Khadijah asked Abu Bakr to go with the prophet to Waraqa. So when Muhammad went to Waraqa, Abu Bakr was supposedly with him. The tradition is also reported on the authority of Ibn Ishaq, which is pretty interesting, because you don't find that in any of the versions of Ibn Ishaq that we have that are extant. It's been purged out of all of them. It's also reported by several other sources. So this is not something that was incredibly obscure. This was something that people could find fairly easily at this time. There's even a tradition stating that the prophet reported his apprehensions in connection with the summons he heard to Abu Bakr, who was his companion. So that this was a very, very early connection, even outside of the Khadijah going to Abu Bakr and then going to Waraqa, that maybe he went to Abu Bakr apart from Khadijah. The tradition of favor of Abu Bakr maintains that he was the first one to embrace Islam in a number of sources. He even believed in the mission of the prophet in the time of Bahira the monk, according to some of these sources. And this is interesting because Muhammad didn't know he was a prophet somehow, because this is all supposed to be a big surprise, right? It's a big surprise. That's why he thought he was possessed by a demon. He had no idea. Yet at the same time, our buddy Bahira, the monk, was supposed to have told him that the big birthmark on his back showed that he was a prophet that was coming from Mecca to Medina and all of these places, because it said in the Holy Scripture of the Injil that the prophet with a huge purple red mole on his back was definitely coming. This is what is supposed to be in our books, the prophet of the mole. Okay? Mm-hmm. And yet, it's somehow a big surprise to him when this demon comes and squeezes him. So again,
I think I figured it out. I think I figured it all out. So, we ask who corrupted the gospel and who corrupted the Torah. Apparently it's this monk, right? Because he has the real book. He's been waiting to see Muhammad. Then he sees him under a magic tree, knows that he's a prophet, tells everyone, but also tells no one. And then he destroys all the books. And that's how the gospel got corrupted and the Torah got corrupted, is because this monk didn't want anyone to know that Muhammad was the prophet, even though he himself was very enthusiastic and glad to tell people, including Muhammad, who then didn't know about it when he was squeezed by a demon. I think we figured it all out. As long as you don't think about anything that I just said, it will all make sense to you.
And again,
we do have a Muslim in the chat. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had several. But again, this is a sign of desperate revisions to early Islam that are still controlled somewhat by things that people knew. So you could only do so much with this Bahira story. And this supposed Bahira story could only be introduced to a certain degree because you still had to keep elements that people already all knew as true. This was already an established tradition, and so you couldn't erase it. You could only manipulate it so much. And so we have these incoherent things because it wasn't made up all at the same time. It was instead revised legends on top of actual historical factual events that happened within a reasonable window of time, such that you are constrained from totally making things up that would make Muhammad look less fake. And so you have these really stupid things that are added to try to make him look less fake. But go ahead.
So Adnan Ben says, I'm going to some other channel. I hope you all find Allah. Save your souls. Well, Adnan Ben, we don't believe that a human being saves their own souls. That is an act of God. But thank you for the well wishes. Here's some well wishes for you. I hope that you activate your brain, realize that you're following a demon, and pull your soul back from the devil who is dragging you to hell in his false religion known as Islam. He is being sincere, though. He says, one God, one purpose. I gave myself to Christ. Nothing happened. Uh-huh. Sure you did. Sure you did. And he also said, thank you for addressing me. I'm not afraid and I'm not running. I have something better to do than disrupt your video. You won't believe what I have to say anyway. So you've been here before. You know very well that that's not true. That I do listen to people. I do respect them. You had an emotional reaction to the situation in Palestine, and you ran back to your demon god as a result of it. That's the reality of what happened. You came in here, you admitted that Allah is a false god, then Palestine attacked Israel, and there was repercussions for that. You had an emotional reaction, and you ran back to your demon god. Hey, it's your soul, right? It's your choice to make, but you know, right? You know that your intellect was telling you that Islam is false, which is why you left it in the first place. And no, you did not give your soul to Christ. You may have said some magic words, but you definitely did not give your soul to Christ. All right, Mary.
So, Ali. So here are some various other possibilities from other sources and other traditions. There is a tradition that says that Abu Bakr believed in the Prophet at the time of Bahira, the monk, and he was a matchmaker who arranged the Prophet's marriage to Khadijah, and all that before Ali was born. This is probably nonsense to try to make Abu Bakr's first caliphate look more legitimate, because if the first caliph is more legitimate, then the second caliph is more legitimate. Then there is also other traditions. There are traditions that Ali was the first to embrace Islam. And another one is that Zaid ibn Haritha was the first to embrace Islam. And we're going to talk about Zaid in more detail in a second.
The Muslim wants to know why I'm running. Says, you see my messages. Well, first of all, I don't necessarily see every single message that everyone types. I can't pay attention to the presentation and read every single message. But you've been here before. You know I've put up your messages. You know I'm not running from you. Oh, okay, you're that guy, right? The manuscript guy. Today's not the day for that, right? Let's say theoretically, and I will say that I didn't actually have time to dig the stupid manuscript out of the stupid library where it is. But let's say theoretically it doesn't exist. How would that make Islam true? How would there being no manuscripts of the Quran with additions, but being lots with subtractions make Islam true? You realize I can just say that every single Bible manuscript doesn't have any additions, just most of them have some subtractions. That doesn't do anything for your case. You called it a Mustaf yourself. You know Mustaf means manuscript. You know it existed. You know it probably still exists, and it's just in some obscure library. You're just playing stupid games. I'm not running from you. Your criteria is retarded, and yes, I didn't have time. If you'd been here at the start, you would have known why, because I explained what's been going on in my personal life. I didn't have time to pull your stupid manuscript up. I'll get you your stupid manuscript. Don't worry. Don't worry. And then you'll just come up with another reason. You'll say that's not a Quranic manuscript because it has additions to it. So it doesn't count as a Quranic manuscript.
Just so that everyone knows, if there is an ayah of the Quran written on something, that is Quran. If it is an ayah and it is written, that is Quran by Islamic tradition. You cannot say that this is not a full Quran. That's not how it works. If you have one verse that is written, then that is Quran. So if there is literally any handwritten account that has these actually written out, they are Quran by definition. That is the definition of Quran according to Islamic tradition. And of course, because especially since the Islamic world got typesetting so incredibly late, there are many written accounts that have these verses and say these verses are from the Mus'haf of Ubaid, and therefore, according to Ubaid, they are Quran. Now, absolutely no early source ever says that Ubaid just put it as a note or a footnote or an extra prayer in its Mus'haf. No, it was the Mus'haf of Quran only whenever Ubaid had it made or wrote it himself. And also in the ones that he had distributed to his followers. Therefore, the fact that this exists and the knowledge of it comes from written things, these are Quran. They are, by definition. So, Muslim, you're just ashamed because you don't want to leave Islam now that you know that there were multiple chapters that are still recorded that were excised, ripped out, torn out, shredded. You guys have put the Quran into pieces, as Allah himself accuses you of. That since you have shredded the Quran into pieces, that you are like upset about this. But since Allah himself says that you have done this, I don't really see what your problem is. Anyway, there are some.
So I just want to take one other comment real quick. So Bob K says, I thought I was kind of joining the chat. It's me, Bob, the Muslim. I assume that you're probably the Bob we've spoken to before. I would love to speak to you again. It's been a long while, but not today. You just came in. You don't know this, but I'm having all kinds of internet issues here. We're going to be doing good just to struggle through the stream as it is. So next time I'm streaming, I'll have my internet issues straightened out, and then would love to take your call.
But you guys are lucky because guess what? We've only got like seven more actual slides this time because I didn't want to shove multiple things in one, and this is a fairly short topic. It would have been way too long to condense this into one, so I split it into two fairly short ones. Last time we had lots of chat time. This time we're probably not even going to try to have chat time because his internet's going to die again. But even including this slide, there are only 7 more, so we'll cover this topic, I think, quite thoroughly, actually. So you note here that it says that according to At-Tabari, that Abu Bakr, that this is just a report, not according to him as authority himself, but a report in his history, that Abu Bakr may have converted to Islam after around 50 people. So rather than being one of the earliest, it may have been around 50 people. And for the same reason that some people want to make his conversion ridiculously early, when he was a child and he didn't even know Abu Bakr believed in him, kind of thing, right? For the same reason, the people who were supporters of Ali and want to support his claim over Abu Bakr's want to make Ali to have converted long before Abu Bakr, and so they suppressed his early conversion. There's also the issue that Abu Bakr was a Hanif, and he named his son Abdur Rahman before Islam. And his name, and this older son was actually a very strong pagan and didn't convert to Islam until much later. His name was not changed to this. This was his name from birth. So he's running around as a pagan with this Judeo-Christian-y influenced name almost certainly because Abu Bakr was a Hanif. Remember that Abu Bakr is frequently listed as a Hanif, even though he's suppressed in other sources, again, because of the level of his influence on Muhammad would have made Muhammad's discovery that he's a prophet look a lot more suspect. Because if your best friend was always like, oh, we should all be monotheists, so look at my son running around being an idol worshiper, he shouldn't do that, we should all be monotheists. Oh, uh, Uthman ibn Huwayrith, we should follow him, we should do what he says, and maybe we should become all Christians, we should all be monotheists. If he was running around doing that, and then suddenly his best friend goes, Alhamdulillah, I am a prophet of Allah, kind of thing, it would be very suspicious. And so this is one of the reasons I think that these early sources are so suppressed. So, and then the final two options we mentioned a little bit before, that Zaid ibn Haritha and then Ali ibn Abu Talib, they were both considered to be the first in various sources. And I'm going to deal with them together because their likelihood of being very early was related to the same fact that they were in Muhammad's household. So both of the traditions that concern them will identify only one of them as being in the cave of Al-Hira with Muhammad. But it's extremely likely that not just one of them was, but both of them were in the cave of Al-Hira. This harmonizes with the tradition that Muhammad went with his family, and also that Khadijah was somehow not in the cave with him. Because even the stories that say he went with his family, Khadijah doesn't seem to be there, a few sentences later. So who's his family that he went with? Well, it would have been Zaid and Ali. So why would it be so likely that he would go? Well, because it's so unlikely that they wouldn't have come with him. So a man who has junior companions in some way to accompany him, if you have the kind of status where you have these junior companions, whether or not it's a son or a slave or a nephew, that they wouldn't go is really unlikely. Younger household members, like slaves and sons, they carried your things, they served you, they protected you. Ali was only 10 now, so he was too young for protection, but he was young, but he was of the age to do all the sort of cut the firewood, heat up the food, serve this, do that. If he has a camel with him, which I don't think he did, but do those sorts of little chore tasks around the campsite, right? Zaid, however, was 30 at this time. Now, when Muhammad met Ibn Amr, another point is that Zaid ibn Haritha was with him. So Zaid ibn Amr was the Hanif who lived up on the mountain of Al-Hira, remember? And he was coming back, and Muhammad was coming back from Taif with the pagan sacrifice meat that he had sacrificed at the temple of Alat, I believe. And so as they're coming back, and then Ibn Amr goes, oh, you shouldn't sacrifice meat to idols and things like that. And Muhammad was like, oh, I was so ashamed, I never did it again. Whatever, whether or not he did or didn't, or whether or not Zaid Ibn Amr just upbraided him. Note that Zaid ibn Haritha was with him. Why was he with him? Because you would go to these places with companions, especially protective ones, people to carry stuff, that kind of thing. Now note, whenever Muhammad later went to Taif, he took both Zaid and Ali with him, according to the sources that talk about him, running around in Taif, and the people of Taif start abusing him, and then he runs away. He's with Zaid and Ali. Why would he not be with Zaid and Ali here? Why would he be alone? Now, reclusive retirement did not mean total isolation. It just meant divorcing yourself from other places. Like Muhammad's wives joined him in other tents for itikaf later on, whenever he's doing itikaf in the Medinan mosque, where he's doing the retirement, the hermitage type of thing. It didn't mean to be alone. It meant to be isolated in a place and not in other places. You are the one who is divorcing yourself from other places. You're not divorcing yourself from all the other people around you. So there really is very good reason to believe that they were both in the cave with him. Now, why would you not talk about them being in the cave with him? Guess what happened in that cave? Muhammad saw something in a dream. No one else saw anything else. No one else knows anything else about this. This was in a dream. It says very clearly, even in Aisha's account, even in the latest account that Muhammad made up to tell Aisha, it was a dream, which means no one else saw anything who would be with him. And to even draw attention to the fact that people were with him, emphasize the fact that nothing was happening. He was alone. This was completely a dream, a demon paralysis type sleep dream. So we should not be surprised that the adherents of Ali would very, very strongly support his claim to being the first Muslim and with him in Al-Hira. And we shouldn't be surprised that there is still the remembrance, the echo of the fact that Zaid was also in the cave with him. Now we have, it is the Shia position that Ali was the first one to believe, and that he was in that cave. And now, in spite of Shia attempts to cover this up, it's clear that he actually saw and heard nothing. So they'll go, oh, well, he saw something. No, he didn't. These are traditions that were kind of added on extremely recently. But again, because they were not witnesses to this figure who appeared in a dream, obviously because it's a dream, a lot of this tradition was heavily suppressed in the Sunni tradition, and you only get little pieces of it. But of course, it's upheld as much as possible in the Shia tradition. So here's someone answering a question on a Shia site. This is a guy who heads up the World Ahlul Bayt Islamic League in London, and Ahlul Bayt is the way that I would say it more easily. But Ahlul Bayt, which means people of the house, meaning the house of Muhammad, meaning Fatima's house, meaning the people who it means Shia, basically is what it means. And so it's a Shia Islamic League, and he is giving an official answer. Yes, Imam Ali was always accompanying the Prophet Muhammad, including when going to Hira cave, when he used to pray and worship Allah when the Prophet was worshiping Allah. Even during the revelation, he was with the Prophet. But he was not a prophet. The Prophet told Ali, surely you hear what I hear and see what I say, but you are not a prophet. You are my successor. And of course, this, you hear what I hear and see what I say, is attempting to attach Ali to actually being able to hear Jibreel, but that part's nonsense, of course. But the fact that he was in Al-Hira cave, even in some Sunni tradition, indicates that almost certainly both these men were there. If one of them was there, especially if the younger one was there, the older one was definitely there. So
before you go on to option 5, I finally got Adnan to be on topic, and I asked him why the sources are so confused, why you can't tell from the Islamic sources who the first Muslim was. And he answered that question with Khadijah was the first Muslim. Now, I'd like him to give a source for that. I would like him to defend that source as to why he thinks it's reliable, because guess what? That might be what you were taught as a kid. That might be what you believe, but it's not what's found in your sources.
Well,
we're going through your sources.
That one actually is one of the things that's found in the sources, that Khadijah was the first Muslim. Is found, but so are all the other ones.
Many things, right? One of the many things.
Yes.
So he has to justify why he's going to that particular source and using it as his definitive information, because you can find 5 different answers from 5 different sources. So, which is why I asked the actual question I asked: why are the sources so confused? Why can't they get this piece of information straight? Seems like some pretty basic information that shouldn't be controversial.
Yep. And again, remember, these sources say that, so the two that are not found in the Islamic sources, but really should be, if any of the ones are, is Waraqa and Addas, the slave, are not found in the Islamic sources, but according to the narrative, why aren't they included? Khadijah is found. Abu Bakr is one of the most popular ones that's found. And possibly, Muhammad going to Abu Bakr, before he even went to Khadijah, and that Abu Bakr believed in him before he was even married to Khadijah. He's so early. But again, there are other ones that say Zaid ibn Haritha and Ali ibn Talib. Now, why would they say that? Because again, they were in the cave. And while Muhammad thought he was possessed, supposedly magically they believe that he's a prophet after this encounter. And it's really funny because all of these people supposedly believed before Waraqa died that Waraqa died before Muhammad was revealed as a prophet. How can this be true? How can you have people following Muhammad as a prophet, yet Waraqa dies before Muhammad is revealed as a prophet? And so they're like, again, this is time traveling uterus type of stuff. Waraqa dies. Muhammad is not revealed as a prophet. Yet everyone who is ascribed as to being the first believer, their belief is assigned to a period of time before Waraqa dies. This is just how incredibly nonsensical it is. So here is another one from another Shia site. And this one's also quite significant because it says that Ali ibn Abu Talib describes this enlightening period of his age in this way. Muhammad used to go to the cave of Hira, but no one except he and I did know about it. So apparently he did it secretly. I don't know how his wife would not know where he was going, but apparently it's super, super secret, right? At the time when the religion of Islam had not yet reached the homes, he and his wife Khadijah were the only Muslims. So this one said that, okay, fine, Ali was the first believer, and then Khadijah was next. And I was the next person to them. This one is actually putting this possibly after the time. I think that this is an auto translation, so it's a bit funky. I was the next person to them who saw the live revelation and the prophethood and smelled the fragrance of the prophethood, because of course he's supposed to smell really sweet, just like the pagan gods did in the pagan sources, which is certainly not pagan. When the prophet was ordered by Allah to invite his family members to embrace Islam, according to the advice of the prophet, I think according to the advice of the prophet, Ali invited 40 persons of the prophet's family at his home. Although the food was quite little, all of them ate fully well. You always have to emphasize how frugal Muhammad was, even though Khadijah was supposed to be super rich. Somehow they always had a very, very humble table, but whatever. After the meal was over, the prophet spoke to those present, saying, "Oh, the sons of Abdul Muttalib, God has ordered me to invite you to embrace Islam and to get you introduced to it. Whosoever, having believed in my prophethood, promises to help and assist me shall be my brother, deputy, and successor, and my caliph." And again, this is very transparently fabricated because there's no deputy, successor, and caliph. Probably the same word in Arabic. I think this does not look like a machine translation. I think this is just a really poor hand translation. He repeated the sentence twice, but no one except for Ali gave a positive response. As many times as the prophet addressed the person's presence, no one except Ali answered. Ali was rising again and again to his feet, promising to help him and announcing his faith. And this is a very goofy story, but again, Shia stories tend to be as goofy as the early Islamic ones are because they're heavily muddled with. Whether or not there is any truth in this matter at all, not really sure. It's a pretty obvious silly one. But what's important here is that this banquet is the event after 3 years where Muhammad begins teaching in public. So what happened during those 3 years where supposedly only Khadijah, Muhammad, and Ali believed? It's, and he isn't telling anyone else at all. Again, this early stuff is very, very mushy. Now, this is a Sunni site. This is Islam Web, which is Sunni. This one says that scholars differed on the opinion concerning the first person who embraced Islam at the hands of the Prophet. That sounds kind of violent, at the hands of the Prophet Muhammad. Some of them are of the view that Ali was the first person. This is based on the opinion of Ibn Abbas. And again, this is our buddy who died, who wasn't even born around, or was born right around this time. Like, he was a baby when this happens, if he was alive at all, which was narrated by Ibn Sa'ad, with the change of narrators, which Sheikh al-Albani graded as Hassan. However, the chain reads that Ali embraced Islam after Khadijah. So this one says Khadijah, and this particular one, then Ali. It's the Shia who will say that no, it was Ali. It absolutely was Ali. Ali was the first. Now another one said, and then Zaid ibn Arqam, who is a narrator in the Sunni tradition as well. He clearly said that Ali was the first person, period, who embraced Islam. Now, here's the evidence for Zaid ibn Haritha. So according to Ibn Shabab al-Zuhri, Zaid was the first to accept Islam after the revelation began, obviously. But note, narrations differ over who was the first convert was. To reconcile between the different narrations, we simply say, again, this is Islamic site, that the first Qurayshi to accept Islam of the adult males was Abu Bakr. The first female was Khadijah. The first Mawla, that means a freed slave, was Zaid. And the first child was Ali. The point being that Zaid was among the first. Now, Yasser Qadi, I would like to point out, and this is from Yasser Qadi's site, he admits that Zaid had to have been married to Ayman in the Jahiliyyah, like I had said before. I've been making fun of the Islamic sources which assert that Zaid and Ayman's son, who would have been a toddler in the traditional timeline, was like Muhammad's close, among his, close advisors, and led raids as a baby, basically. And note that Yasser Qadi here, he's just going to say, no. This is Zaid married Ayman in the days of Jahiliyyah. So in the days of Jahiliyyah, while Zaid was still a slave, he married Ayman, who, as we said, was a servant of Amina, the Prophet's mother. After the passing of Amina, Ayman was inherited by the Prophet. She didn't suckle him, but took care of him. And Ayman was a young lady, maybe 10 to 15 years older than the Prophet, so at least 20 years older than Zaid. And Zaid married her, and they had a child who was born literally in the house of the Prophet, Usama ibn Zaid, etc., etc. And, he's supposed to be, people would go to him to ask him to intervene because Muhammad adored him so much, etc., etc. So he right here is just saying, hey, by the way, these Sunni sources are complete nonsense about the fathering of Ayman's children. And in reality, both of her kids came in the Jahiliyyah. When Zaid was still a slave, both of her kids were already born, which is what I said before. And notice that her first kid, Ayman, is not from Zaid, but from someone else. And again, I will say once again, I believe that Muhammad thought he was likely the father of Ayman, and that was why he adopted Zaid, to bring Ayman into legitimacy, and then threw it all away when he got the hotties for Zainab ibn Jahash. So
Marcos has a very important observation. What? No sucklings?
Correct, no sucklings, because she was just a girl at the time, and she had not had any children yet. She was like 8 or 10 when Muhammad was born, most likely. So, or actually, 8 or 10 when Muhammad's mother married married his father, Abdullah, and 4 years older than that when he was born. Excuse me. Sorry.
The Talmudic Tunnels Construction says Adam was the first to hit the like button. Well, it's too late for you to be the first, but you can still hit the like button and make sure that we get this stream out to more Muslims. We've seen several in the chat today. Their data of watching this stream plus your likes will help YouTube recommend it to other Muslims who need to hear this material.
And then, as we've already covered, there's kind of this Islamic compromise. Well, you're the first this, you're the first that, you're the first this other thing. And the people who are usually left off the list for some time are the daughters of Muhammad, who are supposed to be the first girls. And for some reason, they usually get left off the list, but they're supposed to be part of this very early group. Notice that Fatima is actually left completely out of the Ali stories. Of course, she was quite young, but still, it's pretty funny that she was left out so thoroughly from these Ali's wonderful faithfulness stories. Somehow Fatima doesn't even rate a mention here. So here is the question of what probably actually happened. Muhammad didn't really declare himself as a unique kind of prophet until 3 years after the event of the cave. And he didn't really have any real followers per se until then. Maybe there were people who prayed with him, but his prophethood wasn't clear even when Waraqa died, and likely not for a while after. So he was definitely giving Quran by the time Waraqa died, because there are verses of the Quran that are contextually linked to the death of Muhammad in a way that he is responding directly to someone and would not have made it up later on. He might have made it up like, oh, Waraqa was the first to believe in you, blah, 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 but he wouldn't say that, no, your Lord has not left you nor forsaken you, whenever someone said, oh, your demons have left you because Waraqa died. So he seems to have been introducing Quran at that point, but he likely only claimed himself to be a warner and not a prophet yet. And this entire time is really a weird period. Israfil, who was one of these who is this mysterious angel, is also assigned to this period in some traditions. During the first 3 years, Israfil is the one who came to him and didn't bring him any actual revelation, according to some. And then other ones says, oh, well, Israfil was coming to him even before the time in the cave and wasn't bringing him any revelation. So there was this Israfil, and it was Jibril who came in the cave and immediately gave him revelation, definitely immediately gave him revelation. So it seems like this vague period was associated with a supposed Israfil character. That might be even why the story of the Addas, the slave, going, oh, Jibril, I know all about Jibril. He's the caretaker of all the prophets, which of course isn't in the Christian tradition. But that might be part of the reason why that had to be in, or needed, there felt a need for that particular detail to be invented, because of the shadowy Israfil character and what was actually going on at this time. Now notice that the first surah that is officially first is influenced by misunderstanding of Isaiah. And it's so clearly a misunderstanding, guys. So obviously a distorted, ridiculous misunderstanding of a fragment of Isaiah 40 that shows that it was not revealed in the context of a cave. It was revealed later, like, oh, this is what was said to me in the cave. Now I will tell you what was said and this miraculous thing, and incorporating things that he had gotten from Waraqa at that time. But because this is really damning for the narrative of Islam, it gets projected back as if this angel there had been a clear angel and he had spoken things to him. Though why he would think that he's a demon, goodness knows why he would think he was a demon at that time. But, and it's also almost certainly true, and that should be a 2, but it renumbered because I subtracted. Abu Bakr had already been a monotheist of sorts and was a strong influence as well as a very early supporter. Khadijah, although she had been a rank pagan when she named many of her kids because she gave them pagan names, she might have been influenced by her monotheistic cousins by this point and might have already been leaning this direction herself. Maybe she had been convinced by Ibn Huwayrith, who was a guy who wanted all the people to convert to Christianity. Now, when Ibn Huwayrith was expelled, there was a lot of political uncertainty of Mecca. They wanted to have a secure place in the political and religious landscape, and they didn't have one as pagans. And so what Ibn Huwayrith was offering was an identity as Christians, and so they would have allies among all the Christian identified groups, especially Ethiopia and Rome were the two main ones. And so they'd be able to grasp onto these people as allies against the forces of the Zoroastrian Persians. And so, but as it was, they were kind of outcasts of everyone and felt very much in danger. But because they were a pagan holy site, that wasn't an easy thing to do, which is why Ibn Huwayrith was eventually expelled. But Muhammad seems to be kind of stepping into this gap. Hey, look, here's the problem. I have an answer for you. We absolutely need to follow the one God. We need to follow the one God. And he wasn't very clear on who this one God was at first. That's why he's called Al-Rab. So Adnan says, in the cave, Mary Muhammad got the final revelation. Well,
yeah, the final revelation, right, Mary? He's been getting revelation for all this time, and then he goes into the cave and he finally gets that final revelation that completes Islam.
Well, here's the funny thing. Some people think that he got everything. So apparently, he was immediately struck by forgetfulness, because there were many times whenever he didn't have answers for people for a long time until supposedly Jibril came and gave him an answer. So apparently he got the whole final revelation, but just didn't know it for his entire life. Because
it was a digital download.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
it
got was encrypted.
Implanted on his hard drive, but he didn't have the software to read it, so he didn't know what it meant.
Right.
Something like that.
Because remember, like, just as one of many examples, whenever he was asked about the people of the cave, he couldn't answer for days. But he got the revelation then, really. Whenever Aisha was accused of adultery, he didn't have the answer, didn't know whether or not she was guilty for days and days. Yet, somehow, he later got it. So apparently,
well,
he
not
was
only
just
that,
too stupid to know what had been revealed to him. I don't know. It got encrypted.
Yeah. And all those Sahih narrations that say this verse was revealed in response to this situation, apparently not. Apparently that verse was already revealed to Muhammad, and he just was made to recall it at that time, and all the Sahih are wrong.
Or maybe he just lied. Muhammad had it all along. He was just lying to everyone, saying that Jibril was coming to him because it was really just our buddy Dihya, and he wanted to still have his fun with his hot Arab buddy. So
don't answer this question, Mary.
Go ahead.
But I'm going to address it on air because I've already addressed it in chat 5 times.
I'm going to go to the
Adnan thinks he finally took 5 minutes to do some research and found out that Muslims have this great polemic that no one's ever heard before, that Jesus didn't know the hour. And no Christian can answer this question. And thus, he needs to go into every stream he can find with a Christian and ask him this question, as if none of us have ever heard this from a Muslim before. Adnan, we will schedule a stream entirely on this question, nothing else. You email me, you set up a time, we'll discuss this. That is not the topic today. You threw a hissy fit. You acted like a baby when I timed you out for being off topic. Guess what? Next comment that's about Christianity, you will be in timeout again, and you can throw another hissy fit and another tantrum. I don't care. If you want an answer to this, if you really think we can't answer it, then schedule a time to talk about it. You'll humiliate us, and then we'll be forced to convert to Islam. But that's not the topic today, and you will not distract the chat. You are the dhimmi in this relationship. You will feel yourself subdued. I am not going to be subdued to your questions, okay? That's how it works here. You're the dhimmi. I'm in control. If you want your topic addressed, you schedule time for it. You do not come into my chats and distract. I hope I've made myself clear. This is the 15th time I've told you, including all the times I told you in chat, because there will not be another mention of this. You will just go to timeout without explanation the next time you bring this stupid comment up. All right. So, since Mary is taking a quick break there, let me take the super chat here from Joshua Wooden. Who ate the apple? You ate the apple. All of it? Yes, all of it. So Joshua says, to both and welcome back. As in Christianity, hermeneutics of historical and literary context help a proper interpretation. Does Islam have hermeneutics? That's a good question.
So it does, but the hermeneutics are concerning the circumstances of revelation. That's basically it. So the critical historical method in Christianity is a very dominant current method because it's a very modern method, and it's not the only method, nor is it the only historical method. The main historical method was also about prophecy and cross-referencing. So it's beyond the immediate. It's the greater context, actually, in a lot of ways, outweighs the immediate context and the kind of overarching historical view and historical approach to the text. So I honestly think that if you're doing something, interpreting something against in a way that Jesus didn't, that you're doing it wrong, that Jesus is our authority about how to interpret text, and so are the apostles. So yes, the critical historical method yields a lot, but it's only one aspect of a hermeneutical method. But yeah, the Islamic hermeneutical method is only based on the circumstances of revelation and on hearsay. That's basically it. And then there's,
well, I will add one thing,
yeah.
right? It is also based on authority. So,
Mm-hmm.
like the earlier Muslims who gave their interpretation of what the Quran say, that carries a very high weight, at least to a scholarly Muslim.
Well,
To a YouTube commenter, not so much.
But that's the thing, that's not actually true. They throw out their earliest sources. Now the Muslims throw out
okay,
very earliest. If you're talking about
right. Earliest was the wrong word, but
yeah,
the source is considered authentic,
classical.
right? They carry high authority, or classical scholars. They carry high authority. It's not like when you have a modern Christian biblical scholar looking at the text and just basically ignoring the history of interpretation and trying to come to its meaning. They go to what the well-accepted early-ish at least, Muslims said about it. So it is also based on authority, but it's not based on anything like the historical critical method, which, as Mary points out, has its own flaws.
Yeah,
but just trying to be clear as to how they work.
And the circumstances of revelation go back to, again, the hearsay method of determining what that is, which itself is highly problematical. So,
and Muslim, he just has all the answers to all of our questions, and I don't think he's made one comment on topic other than saying something like Adam was the first Muslim or something like that. He says, now this is a guy, I'm only pointing this out because this is a guy who has repeatedly put in chat every time anyone says anything mildly insulting towards him, that he'll say, you have no answers. That's why you're using ad hominems. He's constantly posting comments like this, which by his own criteria show that he has no answers. He says, I've never seen a missionary who isn't mentally unstable. Yeah, sure. Because you define mentally stable as believing in Muhammad as your God and worshiping him. And anyone who doesn't do that, they're mentally unstable. So of course you've never seen a Christian missionary who worships Muhammad like you do, and thus they're all mentally unstable according to your messed up definition.
He thinks you have to be crazy if you wouldn't have sex with a little child like he does. So that's what he thinks. He's like, all these Christian missionaries, they think that having sex with children is wrong. They're all crazy.
Yeah, they're mentally unstable. They can't believe in the beauty of child marriage. They can't believe the amazing standard that Allah handed down, that if you won't crush the girl to death, you can fuck her right like crazy. And yes, I said that on purpose, because that's an appropriate terminology for what Muslims believe is that Muslims like Muslim believe sane people think about children, right? That tiny little girl, if you won't destroy her body, literally destroy her body, you can pay her so that you can marry her, and then you can fuck the hell out of her body. Now, you want to call me mentally unstable? Go right ahead. Back to you, Mary.
All right. So the very last couple of points. So Zaid and Ali were almost certainly with Muhammad in the cave and they saw nothing. The fact that there is any tradition was Zaid ibn Haritha, who was called Zaid ibn Muhammad. Zaid ibn Muhammad, until Muhammad decided that he wanted to have sex with Zaid's wife. To most of the people for most of Muhammad's career, that was Zaid ibn Muhammad, Muhammad's closest associate. The sons of his wife, one of whom was his son, they were also among the most intimate associates of Muhammad. They were his advisors in the affair with the affair of slander with Aisha of Ifk. The affair of Ifk, whenever she was accused, the two people that Muhammad went to were Ali and Usama ibn Zaid. So that is how central these folks were. And yet, it is so incredibly suppressed. His role, his influence, everything else. As soon as he wanted to marry Zayd's wife, suddenly Muhammad was sending him out on all of these super dangerous trips, on all of these incredibly dangerous activities to make sure he got killed and got out of the way. And so much of his early influence has been eradicated from the sources because it's highly inconvenient. It's highly unacceptable. It is disgusting. And so he and so the fact that there is any tradition whatsoever about Zayd having been with Muhammad, being the first believer, really, really points to the veracity of Zayd and Ali having been in that cave together with Muhammad and seeing nothing, but having gone, oh, we were with him from the beginning, so we're the first believers kind of early on. And then finally, the main reason he was in the cave was likely connected to Khadijah's unexpected pregnancy after Muhammad had given up all hope of having a son. One of his sons did not die until he had become a prophet, because one of the revelations in the Quran was directly concerning someone who insulted him after his son died.
I just want to confirm that Muslim has acknowledged that I am completely correct, that Mary is completely correct, that he is perfectly fine with what I described, a man sticking his full-size adult penis in a tiny little girl who he has paid her father for the rights to use her body. He's perfectly fine with that, and he doesn't care what I think about it because I'm a slave to secular liberal morality, which is very interesting since the moral values that I'm a slave to aren't from secularism. They aren't from atheism. They aren't from liberalism. They're from Christianity. And secular liberal morality fights against those values. It seeks to undermine the idea of what a man and a woman is, and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to acknowledge that he confirms that he believes that any age girl, as long as she is not physically destroyed by the size of the man's penis, is fair game. And Anon also says the same, saying a 9-year-old is a woman. A 9-year-old is a woman. Not his words, not mine. So they don't deny it. I'll give them credit, right? They understand what their prophet did. They understand that he's the perfect example. And so they have come to the conclusion that these things are perfectly acceptable. And anyone who thinks otherwise is mentally ill following secular liberal values. Just wanted to be clear there.
And yet Adnan is still less disgusting than his prophet, because he has to lie about the Quran and corrupt it, because he cannot accept the fact that it tells him that he can have sex with prepubescent children. That there is only a divorce in the case of consummation, and the Quran tells you how to divorce prepubescent children because there is no requirement for puberty of any sort
notice the errors in the statement.
whatsoever. And he claims, no. When I said that the Quran doesn't have the standard, he's like, yes, it does. It absolutely does not. You are absolutely...
Notice the number of errors in this statement. Okay, he says the Bible and the Quran are the same. When a girl hits puberty, she's a woman. The Bible does not say when a girl hits puberty, she is a woman. The Quran does not say when a girl hits puberty, she is a woman. What the Bible does say is that a female should be fully mature and capable of making her own decisions and past the age of puberty before she marries. What the Quran says is that you can marry prepubescent girls. Maybe it doesn't define what a woman is, but it's irrelevant because it says you can marry prepubescent girls. Prepubescent girls are not women under any standard, including your own. The Quran says you can marry them. So you have no clue what the Bible teaches, no clue what the Quran teaches, and you're just trying to justify Muhammad's sick, disgusting marriage. That's it.
Yeah, and in the Bible, it describes... It's not prescriptive saying that when you must marry, but it describes in two different cases where a girl who is developing breasts is not yet old enough to get married, but she will be after a while. It isn't specific about when that a girl with hair and breasts, with developing hair and breasts in one case, and then the other breasts, that she's not old enough to get married, but she will be in a while. So no, it doesn't say that, moment of puberty, you're ready for marriage. In fact, it says that there is a lapse between indications of puberty and eligibility for marriage. She's not ready to marry yet, but she will be in a bed. Two different passages that say that. You didn't need to tell people not to have sex with kids in the Old... It's amazing all the rules you had to have in the Old Testament. But you didn't have to tell people not to have sex with kids because they weren't. They were having sex with animals. They were having sex with close relations that they weren't supposed to. Men were having homosexual sex. And yet, they didn't have to be told not to have sex with children. Because to be married was to be a householder and to be able to run an entire house by yourself. That was absolutely the expectation, and the idea that a child would be able to run a household was so incredibly ludicrous that it would not have occurred to anyone that a child could possibly get married. You would have to have a person who can run an entire household. Now, Muhammad's child bride, Aisha, could not fulfill her duties that were expected to her of her culture because Muhammad introduced child sex.
Yeah, and Addas, hold that thought 1 second. Hold that thought.
Looked, just so you
Mary,
hang on.
Hold
I have
second.
researched my entire family tree back to, in some cases, the 500s AD. I have 1,500 years of my family tree in cases. And do you know what the oldest or the youngest woman to have had a child in all of that time is? She was 15 in my entire family tree, including all the royalty. It was not at all. Child marriage is not how people get here. No. So.
All right. So hold your thought 1 second, because I want to ask you a specific question related to this. So Adnan says child marrying is in all cultures. And then he said, how do you think Mary got here? Which is why you just talked about genealogy. But hey, Mary, can you think of one culture where child marriage was completely unacceptable? Perhaps an Arabian culture?
Yeah, it was completely unacceptable in the pagan Arabian culture before Muhammad.
And how do we know this?
Because there was a ceremony for girls after they had their first period. They went into a tent, or into it was a court or a house, a dar, which was either a court or a building. It's not really clear which. And they would have a ceremony where they got a brand new coming of age ceremony where they got a new dress. And you don't have coming of age ceremonies for girls who are already married off and their marriages are consummated. Now, they did have early child betrothals. That was very common in that culture, to have an early betrothal, because that gave you, if both your parents died, then the betrothed family would take over raising you for the rest of your life. Or if they got really, if something terrible happened, they became impoverished, then it was a binding contract and they'd have to take over raising you and paying for the rest of your way until you were old enough to marry. But the fact that there was this coming of age ceremony necessitates that there was no such thing as child marriage. And by the way, the Talmudic understanding of Numbers 31, 17 through 18 was not that people were having intercourse with small children, just so you know, Mr. Pervert Jawad. Even the pervert Talmudic folks, I mean, the rabbis were perverts. They were disgusting. They were revolting. They were not the earliest understanding of things. No, a lot of these guys were really revolting human beings. They were absolutely depraved and revolting because they had rejected their God and were in rebellion from him. And yet they didn't think that people were having sex with small children. So, no.
So Adnan's great pushback as to how the Bible teaches child marriage, apparently, is that Lot's daughters slept with him.
Well, guess what?
Lot's adult daughters got Lot drunk, raped him, and it's condemned in the Bible, and this is proof that the Bible condones child marriage. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Where did you determine that they're children? Just because there's daughters, right? I mean, I'm someone's son. Does that mean I'm a child? Mary is someone's daughter. Does that mean she's a child? Why did you determine they're children? Is it because you're so desperate to justify what your prophet did that you'll see the word daughter and assume that means tiny kid? Why don't you read that narrative? Why don't you see what the Bible actually says about it instead of just going by some Muslim website in your desperation to crawl back to your demon god that you rightfully rejected a couple months ago and now you've crawled back to?
All right. So, finally,
enough distraction. Let's finish up the actual topic.
This is the last slide anyway. So, one tradition explicitly says that Muhammad began to love retreat, like retreating to the cave, the itikaf type of isolation. It's actually a synonym of that word that's used there, not exactly that word. I forgot what it is. But anyway, he used to love this kind of ceremony retreat after some of his daughters were born. So this indicates more strongly that it's associated with the birth of his daughters, that the main point in going to this place was probably to go and plead for a son while he's doing weird mystical stuff. So he had a habit after some of his daughters were born, but not all of them. He would start to go to this place and do weird stuff. And it may have been specifically in connection with various pregnancies to go, give me a son this time. I need an heir that's recognized. Yeah, I think that Ayman is my son, but I need one that's recognized. I need a son. Please give me a son, etc., etc. Which again ties into the content revealed in Surah 96 that supposedly it was during, this first revelation concerned whether or not it was his fault that his sexual shortcomings caused him to not have any sons, and instead he supposedly gets the content of the message. Don't worry, it's not your sexual shortcomings that are causing whether or not you have a son or a daughter, but the will of your Lord.
All right. So I guess you're actually done? Is that?
Yes, I am. I told you I'm really short today.
All right. So Adnan, I've said he said I crawled back to the light, not a demon. I said, then why are you so afraid to chat with me? And he said, live. And he says, because I like to chat. Told you the truth. I don't care that Muhammad was a pedo. He is the truth. I am certain that you're telling the truth, that this is what. Okay, so let me explain what happened exactly. Right. you talked to us a couple months ago. You had some cognitive dissonance because you believed one thing, you believed in Islam, and then you were seeing facts that told you that it was false. And so you had cognitive dissonance. Now, there's multiple ways that someone can resolve cognitive dissonance. So, sorry, fancy term, right? Cognitive dissonance means when you have two ideas that are in contradiction to one another, basically. And you're trying to hold on to both ideas, right? You're seeing these facts, you're seeing what you believe about Islam, and you got to resolve that somehow. So initially, you resolved it the correct way. And you said, well, given these facts, Islam must be false. And then you claimed you accepted Christianity. You were very excited about that for a few days. Then you went through a couple-week period where you were putting super nasty comments saying you're an atheist. And apparently you have now crawled back to Islam. So what happened, right? You had the cognitive dissonance, you had these contradictory ideas, you rejected Islam. However, that didn't fully satisfy.
Uh-oh. I think he just froze. Oh no. He died again. And now it's just frozen. Yeah, essentially, Adnan, the reason you went back to Islam is because you are a racial bigot, first of all, and you love the racial bigotry of your false religion. You're very proud of being from a certain extraction and being of the chosen people and the wonderful people and the best people, and you like the tradition. You probably also like some of the perverted things in Islam. Question is, Adnan, are you a pedophile? Because in historical, uh, let me move so that you guys can see me a little bit better. Ah, there we go. So now you don't just see half my face. All right. So according to Muhammad, what will happen whenever you are in Jannah is that you will have little girls with barely budding breasts. That's what's described. So you will have tiny little girls with barely budding breasts in Jannah, and they won't bleed. So this indicates to me that what you are looking forward to for the rest of your life is eating, drinking, and having sex with Tanner stage 1 or 2 girls who are like Tanner stage 2, which is, actually have never menstruated so early. So this is pedophilia. Every Muslim man will be a pedophile in Jannah according to the Quran. The word that is often mistranslated as jutting or large actually means barely coming forth, barely sprouting, barely sprouting breasts. So, Adnan, you will be a pedo in Jannah. You do not have a choice. The other, you will have 80,000 serving boys who do not bleed to do what to? They will circulate among you, and they are among the people who will be in your bed when you look up and see wives, child wives that you had not seen before. Adnan, I can't bring up any of your comments because Thaddeus's internet crashed. When he comes back, we'll go ahead and end the stream. But uh, but he has crashed right now, and so he can't even end the stream. I'm not sure what will happen if I close it out. Maybe it end the stream, maybe it wouldn't. But when he comes back, so Adnan, you are an evil pervert. You will be a pedophile in Jannah of boys and girls. You will have little boys who won't bleed when you have intercourse with them. You will have tiny little girls who also won't bleed when you have intercourse with them. That is one of their distinguishing characteristics, is the fact that they won't bleed. Why did Allah do this? Because Allah is a shaitan. Allah is a demon. He is disgusting. He is perverse. You have no reason at all to believe that Muhammad is anything other than a liar. And he's not even a good liar. He's a stupid liar. So, Adnan, please tell me who the boys in the cave were. Because he was asked a question as a challenge of the boys in the cave. So that means that the Jews had to have known who these boys in the cave were, and they were testing Muhammad. How did he pass the test? You will be a pedo. Muhammad's promise to you is pedophilia. I cannot put you on live, and you can't join because we are on StreamYard, and Thaddeus internet crashed again. It will come again. So, Adnan, do you believe that Allah has promised you a minimum of 72 little girls to have sex with? That even your wife will be turned into a little girl too young to bleed, who will not bleed from injury the way little girls bleed from injury now. So please, guys, ask Adnan if that is his God, if that's what his God promises. Is that what your God promises? That is what Allah promises. Is that your God? Is that what you're looking forward to? That and the 80,000 little boys who you put your penis into who will not bleed miraculously. Because it's such a shame that you have little boys. Adnan, I am not slandering you. If you are a Muslim, that is what your God promises you. If he is your God, that is what you are looking forward to. Now, Muhammad himself was a murderer of anyone who made fun of him that he could murder. He was a liar. He stole from the common pot and blamed it on dead people. He is an absolute Adnan. Sweetheart, it is what your Quran says. I have a question. Adnan, do you worship Allah? Say yes. And you are saying yes, worshiping a God who promises you small children to have sex with forever. That is who you are choosing. You are choosing someone who says that you will have small children to have sex with forever. Now, I believe that you ought to be able to tell the difference between the promises of a demon to trick stupid, disgusting, revolting men. And I mean all of those. Stupid, disgusting, and revolting men into following him into hellfire. And the promises of the good creator of the world. Adnan, you believe, what is the difference between what Satan would promise a man who is disgusting and perverted to trick him and what Allah promises? What is the difference? You have said that you worship Allah, who is a demon who promises you sex with children. You are looking forward to sex with children, boys and girls. That is your future. That is your eternity. So quit saying that I'm slandering you, because that is who you worship. So I said that would probably wrap up whenever you came back, whenever that happened. I am not wrong, Adnan. You keep saying that you follow Allah. Allah promises you children to have sex with. And you're like, I'm not a pedophile. You will be, according to your own belief.
So obviously, either I'm faking internet issues and did this from before the time we started, because I was.
No, he's dying again. All right. When you come back, we'll just wrap it up. Okay. All right. I just said, as soon as you come back, let's just quit it. That's hilarious. Anyway. So, according to you, Allah is the one who makes you into pedophile. Do you think that the good creator of the entire universe, that the best that he can promise mankind is eternal pedophilia? Can you please tell me Can you please tell me, Adnan? No, Adnan, this has been happening for days. Quit being stupid. You cannot be that idiotic. Adnan, his internet has been going out the last 2 days. And that's why we're on StreamYard in the first place instead of the normal place. No, Allah is not punishing me. Your disgusting demon has no power over me. Adnan, what does Allah promise you that a demon wouldn't promise a corrupt, disgusting man to prick him to hellfire? So, how can you tell the difference between the Jannah of Muhammad and of Allah and the Jannah that a demon would promise you? What would a demon promise disgusting men that Muhammad doesn't promise? Keeping in mind that Muhammad thought that the best females to have sex with are little girls. So he promised everyone little girls because he thought everyone would like little girls best. So please tell me again, what the difference between what Allah promises you and what a demon would promise you. So, let us give me what's promised. Okay, answer. I've only asked you one question and you haven't answered it even once. I've asked you one question and you've been unable to answer it. So here's your one question. What is the difference between what a demon would promise disgusting, corrupt men and what Allah promises disgusting, corrupt men? What's the difference? How can you tell? Adnan, do you think that demons would not promise you that you'd be happy, that you'd have peace in terms of happiness and delight? If a demon is trying to trick you, would he not promise you happiness and peace? I want a way in which a demon would promise you something other than what Allah promises you. Because Muhammad says, oh, you guys hate fighting. Allah is making you fight right now. Don't worry, your demon won't make you fight later. And Jawad, I'm not dealing with you right now because you're dishonest. And you're especially disgusting and corrupt and misread things on purpose because you're disgusting. Allah promised peace, and a demon would promise us truth. Would a demon say, hey guys, I'm going to lie to you? I'm asking you, what would a demon promise you? Would a demon promise you other than what Allah does? A demon wouldn't promise you that you'd have to fight because you hate fighting all of your life. He's trying to trick you into fighting now. So can you please tell me again, what kind of reward would a demon promise the followers of Muhammad that Allah doesn't? Riches in the most carnal sense, like literal treasures and gold and silver and stuff? Yeah, you get that in Jannah. So what would a demon promise you that you don't get with Allah? What does Allah promise you that a demon wouldn't promise you? You get unlimited wine, you get gluttony, you get images. All the things that Allah says that you can't have on this earth, you get there. So you get to, if you can go to a shop. I don't know why there are markets there, but there are markets. You get to go to a market, and if you see an image, the most curious words in it are, you can enter into it. You can enter into your image. Why would you want to enter into an image? What does Muhammad, this Allah, think that you want to do with an image? Mm-hmm. Do what with it? I have a question. You see an image of, ooh, a beautiful woman, a beautiful man, a beautiful donkey. Come on, guys. So, what is it that a demon would promise you that you can't get? There is like one thing that's sort of tacked on to the image of total depravity of Jenna that is imitated from Christian sources, but it doesn't even fit with all. A demon promised deception of truth. Allah is not a demon. Child marrying is not in all cultures. So no, try again. A demon would promise you truth and give you deception. A demon isn't going to promise to trick you. Are you really stupid? Yes, you are really stupid. Adnan, sweetheart, your Quran says that Allah loves men more than women. That's what it says. It says that Allah loves men more than women. And in fact, loves made men so much more superior to women that if if Muhammad had ordered anyone to bow to anyone, he would have ordered wives to bow to their husbands because their husbands are so much more wonderful to them. Why? Because they murdered people. No one can join today. Recent answers, his connection is actually not working right now. And so I'm here holding down the fort alone. In a moment, he'll come back and we'll just end it immediately, hopefully, because he's been having such terrible problems. No, Adnan, I'm not being a demon. Allah is a demon because he wants you to have sex with little boys. Now, Adnan, you keep going, I'm not a pedophile, I'm not a pedophile, but everybody's a pedophile. I'm not a pedophile, but everyone was a pedophile in history. Absolutely all cultures are pedophiles, but I'm not a pedophile. We know that you are. We know that you are a pedophile. That's what you're looking forward to. So, again, hey, quit timing him out, Una. I know he's obnoxious. I'm talking to him. So, he needs to tell me some way in which a demon would promise them something that Allah doesn't. Now, remember that Allah is an idiot. Allah is incompetent because according to Muhammad, Allah created women messed up. He couldn't even create women because he took a rib out of Adam. And when he took the rib out of Adam, the top of the rib was crooked. And so women are crooked, especially in their heads. Their heads are messed up because Allah is incompetent and stupid. Allah is too stupid to be able to create a woman correctly. This is before the fall. This is the first creation. This is Eve in the garden. Allah was so stupid that he couldn't create women decent. So since Allah is a moron, women were created with weak heads. And then also, according to the Islamic sources, when Eve took the fruit from the tree, she made the tree bleed. And so Allah made her bleed, which makes her deficient in religion because then Allah said, oh, you made the tree bleed, I'll make you bleed. And I won't listen to any of your prayers while you're bleeding because I can't, because I'm incapable of listening to prayers while someone's bleeding. Because again, Allah is weak and stupid and incompetent. Now, let us go further. It also says that Eve used to be smart. So apparently she was messed up from creation, right? She has a crooked top from creation. And yet Allah says that, she used to be smart and she was made stupid as a punishment for the garden. And that's also why Allah will send most women to hellfire because Allah himself made her stupid, and so he's going to punish her for how he turned her into. And I'll get you the source for the rib at the top for the person who is claiming that I am live. All right, here we go. Please click on this chat. It's without anyone with me, it's harder to look stuff up and continue talking at the same time. But here we go. Adnan, you believe in a God who will make you into a pedo in eternity. You believe that you will be a pedo forever. Adnan, the only women who exist for you to have sex with, all women, in Jannah will be little girls. It will be Tanner stage 2, and so that is pedophilia. So you believe that for eternity you will have sex with little girls and you will have sex with boys, with you. So again, Adnan, you are looking forward to becoming a pedo forever and enjoying that more than anything that you could have possibly imagined. For 40 years, you will have sex with a tiny little girl continuously. Adnan, I'm not talking about Muhammad. I'm talking about Jannah. In Jannah, the Quran says that you will have sex with little girls who have barely budding breasts. So, Safura, you have no brain cells at all. Here is the hadith that clearly says that Allah made women badly because Allah was stupid and incapable of making women correctly. It says, Abu Huraira reported Allah's messenger saying, act kindly toward women, for they were created from a rib, and the most crooked part of a rib is its top. If you attempt to straighten it, you will break it. If you leave it alone, it will remain crooked. So act kindly towards women. So all women will be crooked, according to Allah, because Allah made women stupidly. So, Jawad, Islam is corrupt. It's disgusting. Are you looking forward to having sex with little girls? Serious question. Your first language is not Arabic, so maybe you didn't know that it means barely budding breasts. Adnan, I can debate you some other time. I can't debate you now because poor Thaddeus can't even come up. So I'm hoping I'll give him like 10 minutes. Hopefully within the 10 minutes, we will be able to, he'll be able to come up and turn it off. If not, I will give turning it off a shot and we will see what happens if I close this out and the last one's gone. So in 10 minutes, one way or another, we're going to end the stream. So, Adnan, are you going to be a pedophile in Jannah? Because in the Quran it says that the women will have barely budding breasts. Are you going to have intercourse with your wives who are so young, their breasts are just beginning to bud? That is my question. If the answer is yes, then you are looking forward to being a pedophile and cannot wait until you can be a pedophile. Of course, you could also be a homosexual of little boys, a homosexual pedophile, and have your pretty little youths. And no, Rebecca was not 3 in the Bible. And no, Mary was not 12. See, these kinds of silly lies are the things that Muslims say because they want to believe that everyone is as corrupt and disgusting as they are. So, let us look. Let's see. I will go to Bible Hub because it's usually easy to read. I think it's 24. Yes, Genesis 24. So let's see how Rebecca is described in the Bible. Okay? So, the servant pretended his master's camels, the master being Abraham. He departed with all manner of good things from his master in hand to find a wife for his son. And he set out for Nahor's hometown. As evening approached, he made the camels kneel down near to the well outside of the town at the time when the women went out to draw water. Does it say the little girls? No, it says the women. The women went out to draw water. Now that there, what that says. Let's see. We'll go over here to the interlinear. Oh, it doesn't actually have a person there at all. It just says when it was a time of going out to draw water. We'll find the next time that actually says the one. I'm going the wrong. Yes, wronger. 10, 11, and 12. All right. And he said, please give me success today. Show kindness to my master Abraham. Here am I staying behind the spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. Now it may happen, the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar that I may drink. If he responds, drink, and I will water your camels well. Let her be the one that you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. So let's look at some of the words that are used here. Daughters is just a generic daughters. But Na'ara is the feminine of Na'ur, which is used for any young male unmarried person up to the age of about 30. So it's not specific at all as to age. The one translates girl in the first one. So that could be up to the age of 20s, 30s, or no, and up to the age of the 20s, right? And then the next one for 15. And it came to pass that before he finished speaking, that behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, came out with the jar on her shoulder. And then, and she was a Betula, a virgin. Now the word, or Betula, is never used of a very small child. It's always used of an older girl. And in fact, the rabbis specifically put a lower age limit of it, I think of 12. Below that, it cannot possibly be. So how can she be 3 if she's referred to as a Betula here, who can't be that young? And no man had known her, and she went down to fill the jar, and she came up. Now notice that this is a girl who's carrying a water jar on her shoulder. What 3-year-old holds a water jar on her shoulder? Would you please show me an image of a 3-year-old holding a water jar on her shoulder? So the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me have a little water from the jar. Drink, my lord, she replied, as she quickly lowered the jar in her hands and gave him a drink. Drink, my lord. Yeah, that's the way small children talk. After she had given him a drink, she said, I will also draw water for your camels until I have had enough to drink. And he quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran back to the water well to draw water until she had drawn enough water for all his camels. So she's putting water in a trough until she's drawn enough water for 10 camels, and they have drank their fill. Do you think this is a 3-year-old? Why would you think this is a 3-year-old? It's explicitly not a 3-year-old. She's not acting like a 3-year-old. She's not talking like a 3-year-old. And yet, somehow you think she's 30. Why? Because you were lied to. That's why. And you're not really smart. So we have 3 minutes. I'll keep going for 3 more minutes. If she can come back again, or if he doesn't come back again, then I will kill it. But yeah. So Jawad, what keeps me away from Islam is that it's the stupidest religion ever. It's the most obvious false prophet ever. Muhammad is perhaps a more obvious false prophet than Jim Jones. Honestly, Jim Jones was more convincing early on than Muhammad ever was at any point. Adnan, you didn't, but another person did. Another person claimed that she was 3. Oh, it's so you're nasty because of what? I'm a pig because of you nasty women. Well, that explains why you're a Muslim, because you believe that you cannot control your sexual impulses and that it is women's fault that you can't behave. And since I guess Islam tells you that everything's women's fault and you can beat them and so on, then you approve of that. No, Islam is the most obvious false religion ever. Now, anyone else want to come and say, Like, Edmund, you're going to be a pedophile according to Allah, according to your God. You're going to be a pedophile. You're all going to be pedophiles. Now, Jawad thinks that it's just irrational disgust. That being disgusted is the only reason I'm not a Muslim, is that I'm irrational and inconsistent, and it's just ridiculous. I'm so disgusted by Islam. But Islam is such a twisting of the goodness of God into something perverse and disgusting. There is no aspect of Islam, there is no piece of Islamic theology that is not a mockery or a twisting or something disgusting or perverse or twisted. There's nothing there. And he says he thinks that he can end it from phone. And I'm saying, do it, because he's unable to log on his computer at all right now. So hopefully he will be able to do it. Admin, I can't send you the link. I can't let you up. I can't control anything. I'm not running this. In fact, no one's running it right now because Thaddeus's connection crashed. I know that you can grasp this, okay? So the stream was started by Thaddeus on Thaddeus's channel. And his internet has been having problems for several days now, crashing, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. You have no control over what it's showing right now. The only thing I can possibly do right now is leave. That's it. That's the only thing I can do. I cannot bring up sources. I cannot bring up people. I cannot do anything. There's no ability to do that. But the fact is, you must grapple with the fact that you believe in a God who thinks that the best reward for men, because he doesn't really care about women, they are objects, they are sex dolls to him. But the best reward for men, the highest, most supreme, wonderful existence that they could have, would be to eat constantly, sweat, go to markets and buy things and talk with other men and have sex with little girls and little boys forever. That is the best thing that there could be with God. Now, let me talk about what God actually made us to do, who God actually is. God is love. In Islam, God is will. And whatever he wills, he wills, he wills, and his will is everything. In Christianity, the substance of God himself, he is love. And he exists, and to be able to love, you must have an object. You can't love yourself. That isn't true love. To will the good of another is what love is. And so he exists in a trinity because there is a differentiation between the subject, the one who loves, and the object, the one who is loved, and the act of loving itself. That is a trinity. There are three centers of consciousness or points of view within the one singular being of God, who is perfectly simple in being, meaning not made up of parts. These are just centers of consciousness, is the best way to express it. And out of love, the Father initiated creation of everything for the Son. Creation is actually a gift to the Son. And we were created to be in community with God, to be a display of God's love, which is his glory, and to be his representatives on earth and in creation, and essentially the link between immaterial God and the material world. That is what humankind was created for this world. And as such, we were created with free will. Because if you do not have free will, you cannot actually love. Love is an act of the will. If that will is not a will itself, that it cannot act, it cannot choose, then there is no love. And so we could choose to obey, we could choose to rebel. We chose to rebel, we chose other than the goodness. And there is no such thing as evil in terms of an actual existent thing. What evil is the absence of good. Turning away from God is evil because God is good. Now, in Islam, Allah actually creates evil. Evil is a thing with substance. In Christianity, evil is the withdrawal of goodness. Evil is the darkness when light is pulled away. So, in that sense, God can create the evil by turning off the light, but has not created evil in the same way in Islam that Allah puts evil in every person's soul. He gives you evil in your soul. Every bit of evil in your soul is put there by Allah. And we were created to be God's representative and its fellow workers, which is why what our final goal is in heaven. We are to be rulers. We are to be creative still. We are to be workers. And we are to make the most wondrous things in the presence of God. So all of the things that people find great value in. Now, the reason why people love crafts and projects and making things and gardening and all those sorts of things, all of those things cranked up 1,000-fold. Yeah, everybody wants to write a book. Why does everybody want to write a book? Because there is this creative element in everyone, because we are little creators, not people who make things from nothing, but that is an aspect of how we are created in the image of God, not just to rule, but to express our creative potentials. And that's what we will do in the presence of God forever. We will be ruling, we will be making, we will be serving in and doing productive things. We will not be rolling around on beds having sex, because that's the best thing that Muhammad could think. So, because Allah is just a cave demon, he is nothing more. He is a cave demon and completely perverse. He promises the kinds of things that perverse, disgusting men would want. Early on, Muhammad actually said all sorts of nice things about and promises to women and girls, but that went away as soon as he got any power, and he needed men to kill people. And then all of his promises turned only to men because he only cared about them. And women were the booty at that point. So Muhammad's message changed dramatically. But that really is part of who Muhammad was. Muhammad was whatever was convenient at the moment, which meant that Allah was whoever was convenient at the moment. So at first, Allah was only Al-Rab. He was not Allah. He was not Allah at all. Then later, under pressure, he became Allah as well. Now he's Al-Rab and he's Allah and Rahman, and he's all these things together. Don't worry, Al-Rab really is Allah, and you can continue to worship at this pagan site. And then he had 3 daughters, and you can go ahead and pray to them. Oh, whoops, I just got fooled by the devil to say that one. Oh, that was too far, because it's awfully hard to keep your monotheistic bona fides if you're like telling people to pray to extra goddesses after all of your nonsense of saying that you can't. So Allah was always inconsistent, except he promised whatever was convenient at the time to trick people. So no, Christian countries never allowed women to be property. Quit being disgusting. Wives were not property. In fact, creation was made for the son. And that is the very reason why whenever in the traditional English marriage, husbands say that they endow their wives with all their possessions. That's why they say that. And also, John Chrysostom talks about marriage as the endowment of all your worldly goods to your wife. Of course, that doesn't exist in Islam. But I don't think that Thaddeus is going to be able to come back. He's been gone 8 minutes after I said I was going to quit. So I will go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. And I hope to catch you next time, and hopefully it'll work better. Let's see if this works to end it. So bye.